You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Welcome back, everyone. It's great to be with you here. Always excited to be able to bring you a Training Thursday show. And today, I could not wait. I just did an interview last night, and it was with Christina Rice. It was a great interview. Really enjoyed going over the topics that she asked me. I never really know the questions ahead of time, but of course, I'm always happy to give my take and my answer on whatever the interviewer brings. So last night, we actually spoke quite a bit about adrenal fatigue, something that I'm obviously familiar with, someone that had Addison's disease, diagnosed Addison's disease, and was treated for that both conventionally and then finally through natural-based methods to overcome that, which would be the exhaustion stage, the lowest stage that you can possibly be of adrenal-based fatigue. And adrenal fatigue, as we know, is more of that layman's terms. And a lot of people get upset in our media or the industry for using the word adrenal fatigue. But there's honestly nothing wrong with saying it. Anybody who says that, it's simply about the ego and about trying to make them sound a little bit smarter than maybe they should come off as. And that's because they want to use things like hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis and the dysfunctional, diurnal rhythms throughout the day. And while all of those things are absolutely correct, there's nothing wrong with using the term adrenal fatigue. It's just that it's been shunned by conventional medicine for a couple decades now. When I, was diagnosed with Addison's disease, adrenal fatigue just used to be made fun of way back then. But when you get diagnosed with Addison's disease, which simply means that your body is not producing cortisol, then it's an actual disease. So conventional medicine does believe in it, but you actually have to be at the very, very bottom, which is Addison's disease, or too high at the top where you're producing too much cortisol throughout the day, and that's called Cushing's disease. Neither one of those are great to have, but of course, there are variations throughout the middle. That's where conventional medicine does not play, right? They don't play in that sandbox that you're either sick or you're not. But that's not the truth of health. Health has many different gradations of the color, right? White or black, right? There's a lot of things in the middle, and that's where integrative health shines. We're able to find those things out on something like a thyroid adrenal hormone panel or just adrenal hormone saliva test. Or by simply running something such as a hair tissue mineral analysis, you'll be able to look at your electrolyte-based patterns. So what I'm here today, though, is to talk about the topic that we just, we went over for about 5 minutes or so on the podcast. And that was, what should you be doing for exercise when your body is fatigued or you're in a state of adrenal-based fatigue? Adrenal fatigue means this. So if you want to look at it from that true HPA axis, is that if you were to do that saliva-based test, and we'll link them up today, simply go to stephencabral.com/1070, or if you don't want to go to the show notes page, you can always just head over to equilibriumnutrition.com and type in adrenal or type in thyroid, and one of those tests will absolutely pop up. Here's what we look at. A lot of people with adrenal-based issues, they're going to show up low on their electrolytes on a hair tissue mineral analysis. If they're in the resistance stage, they may actually show up high for their calcium magnesium on a hair tissue mineral analysis. But let's talk about the cortisol today. When you're in a state of adrenal-based fatigue, typically your AM cortisol is below a 5, or I would even say it starts to creep below a 6 on a saliva-based test. And noon might start to rise just a little bit more, but be on the lower side, and oftentimes we can get a higher evening cortisol. That is the example of what's called a dysfunctional diurnal rhythm or diphasic rhythm. That means that during the morning hours when your cortisol is supposed to be at its highest, it's actually at its lowest. And during the evening when you're supposed to be calming your body down and getting ready for bed, you're actually getting ramped back up. So this affects your sleep, it affects your hormones, it affects your digestive system, it affects your body's ability to produce serotonin, which affects your body's ability to produce melatonin, and the list goes on and on. Well, today what we want to talk about is this. How do we get out of this in terms of exercise? Because I didn't know this. I literally did not know this, but there are people out there right now advocating for interval-based training and hard resistance-based training for those with adrenal fatigue or adrenal-based issues, or just let's call it fatigue issues today. Now, again, this came as a shock to me because it is the last thing that you want to be doing if you have fatigue-based issues. And you can go back to stevencabral.com/podcast and type in the 4 phases of training or how to ramp up your exercise. And I teach how we basically graduate people from one level to the next as we're helping them adapt to stress. So what some people teach is actually a hard morning workout or a hard interval-based workout, which will then spike the cortisol levels, and it spikes dopamine as well, which a lot of people with adrenal-based issues can be low on, as well as norepinephrine. And you can find those on a organic acids test as well. Great test. That's just a simple urine test that looks at 75 biomarkers, including those B vitamins that so many people, just like me way back in the day, were deficient in our B vitamins, and that's why one of the issues we got into adrenal-based issues. So some people are advocating very hard workouts to spike cortisol, and you know what? It does. It does spike cortisol. Why? Is because you are stressing your body, right? So if you stress your body responds by producing more epinephrine or adrenaline and cortisol. That's the brain, basically the hypothalamus, tells the pituitary gland to tell your adrenals, first the adrenal medulla and then the adrenal cortex, to produce things called catecholamines and glucocorticoids. You don't need to know what any of that means. What it means is that your body produces adrenaline that gets your heart rate sped up, that starts to vasoconstrict, that starts to get the body temperature going, all of those things. It widens the pupils, and it enables you to get into that fight or flight, that sympathetic nervous system. And then your body will say, okay, let's produce cortisol, glucocorticoids, which is going to enable us to begin to break down sugar that's either in the bloodstream or from the liver. So what that does is it gets you ramped up for stress because you're combating something, right? You're in a more of a survival-based situation. Now, you're not surviving for your life, but you are in a survival or stress-based situation, and your body doesn't necessarily know. It has one great way to respond, and that's your sympathetic nervous system. And it's easy. Your body just switches into that mode. But what happens is this, and this is where the short-sightedness that I spoke about on yesterday's podcast about these certain carbohydrate-based diets is this, is that, yes, from a clinical perspective, if you were simply a research lab person, and you were sitting in a lab, and you had people in a controlled study, you would see that in hard intervals and hard resistance training, which, by the way, I'm not against, I'm all for, but not for people in adrenal-based fatigue, you would get them to spike their cortisol levels unless they were like me, which is a very small fraction of the percent of people who even have adrenal fatigue that have Addison's disease. Because the whole, the thing around Addison's disease is even under stress, when they inject you with adrenocorticotropin hormone, you still don't spike your cortisol levels, right? You still don't spike cortisol even when stressed. That's the problem with Addison's disease. And it's a debilitating disease where you suffer from flu-like symptoms essentially every day of the year. You have brain fog, hot flashes, joint pain. Your body's a mess. It can't self-regulate. So what happens, though, is this, that most people will still spike cortisol when stressed. So when you do that hard workout, you see the clinical response of the spike in cortisol and potentially even dopamine. You feel great after the workout, but then eventually you crash. The problem is this. You are only further pushing yourself into a deeper level of exhaustion if you're already fatigued with very hard workouts. Now, let's just say one day you didn't get in a lot of sleep, you're tired for the day, and you did your workout. No, honestly, not a big deal, right? Your body should be flexible enough to do that. The problem is this. If you have been getting a lack of sleep for quite some time, you've been traveling quite a bit, there's a lot going on at work, you just had maybe a new baby, you're overly stressed, overly fatigued, not getting a lot of sleep, and your diet hasn't been the best. Is this the time to ramp up and do super hard workouts all the time? The answer to that is no. Now, again, if you want to look at it from just a lab perspective, you can say, well, that hard workout, it'll get those cortisol levels back up. Yes. But to what? To the detriment of the future you. So what I'm trying to do is teach from a level of anti-aging as well as current day health, right? So I want to get you healthy today, but I don't want to sacrifice your longevity or feeling amazing when you're in your 80s. The problem is this. I see people, most people, walking around in the world around me, not feeling their best. They don't have that get up and go. They lack the zest and vitality for life. That is a low-level state of adrenal-based fatigue. Their body is no longer producing the neurotransmitters as well as the catecholamines and glucocorticoids to get them pumped up, essentially, that's what it is, and ready for everyday life. They've become too depleted because if you didn't check out last week's Training Thursday on episode 1063, they didn't use a periodization-based model for training. They went too hard for too long in every aspect of their life. And what I spoke about on Christina's podcast, which will be coming out soon, and I will absolutely forward you the link to that as well, is this. You have to understand, just like we've understood from all the ancient forms of medicine, just because it's 2,000 plus years later, 5,000 plus years later, doesn't make the truth not the truth anymore, right? The truth is always the truth. That's what I try to spread. Is in Chinese medicine, they have this thing called the yin and the yang. I know it's pronounced differently in Chinese medicine, but over here in the West, we pronounce it the yin and the yang. Now, the yang is all of the heart of life. It's an easy way to think of it like this. It might be the aggressiveness, the get up, the go, more of the hard-based energy, right? Think of this. You giving out energy. That's an easy way to think about it. And the yin would be the soft. It would be cultivating energy. So what it would mean is this. With very hard workouts, you are giving out your energy. They're stimulating your nervous system. We'll go over what those are in a moment. With yin-based practices, you're drawing in energy. Now, think of it like this. If you're fatigued, that's why this is a call to all health practitioners out there. And I know about 25%, 30% or so of all listeners to the Cabral concept are other practitioners. I want a call to all practitioners to go back and not do what everyone else is out there is doing. Not do what they're teaching in your school right now, even if it is one of the amazing naturopathic schools out there right now. It's to think about balance of the body. Always about balance. So, if you are fatigued, you're exhausted. Your life has been exhausting you. If you do an exhausting workout, something that draws a lot of energy out of your body, would that be more yang? Would it bring more energy into your body? The answer has to be no. It's no every time. But that's where we go wrong. We study all of this amazing medicine. I mean, I'm looking at my bookshelf right now. I record in my office here in Boston. I have thousands of books on my shelf. All amazing books. Every single one of them, a lot of truth in them. But they talk about one truth at a time. We need to realize that there's something called balance. I'm looking at amazing exercise books. They're about HIIT-based training. They're about interval-based training. They're about metabolic resistance training, which is what I preach as well. But what about the population that's already exhausted? What about them? Because if we train them in the same way and we push them to exhaustion every workout 4-5 days a week, don't you believe that in the long run they're going to be even more tired? And if you answer that as no, where do you think that they're going to rejuvenate from? Where do you think that they're going to get the energy back from? So we have to look at it from the perspective that, believe me, I can point to any research study in the world. I can make anything happen on a lab test that I want to because I know them inside and out. I know how they work. I would be an evil asset to the pharmaceutical industry if they wanted me to ever prove one of their pharmaceuticals or drugs or studies in a positive or negative viewpoint. Because I know the people that will respond the best to certain things. I know there are people that will respond to the worst. So I could set up a clinical study and I could use it for evil purposes if I wanted to. I choose not to. That's not part of my code of ethics. But there's always a way to tweak things. You want me to show you that exercise and hard workouts are great for people with low cortisol? Sure, I could show you that. But you lack then the depth and understanding of what that means in the long term. If you are always giving out your energy and never bringing some back in, every form of medicine tells us that you're going to have a shorter life. Now, you can look at it from the ancient-based wisdom called prana in Ayurvedic medicine, or qi in traditional Chinese medicine. And there are many other variations of that. Everyone talked about a life force, right? That is literally your breath, your life inside of you. Well, if you want to deplete that faster, you will give out all of your energy. Now, again, you know my passion is Ayurvedic medicine, but I studied Chinese medicine in depth, hundreds of books, spent a month in Beijing studying and interning and working with patients in a traditional Chinese medicine hospital. It's a subject that I am very passionate about as well. And I think Chinese medicine actually looks at longevity in very interesting ways. And they are all about cultivating that qi. I studied qigong. I'm a huge proponent of it. That is something where you're drawing in energy. What I want you to think about is this: your life as a whole, not just exercise, your life as a whole. What falls into the yang category, the dark part of the yin-yang symbol, right? If you're not getting 8 hours of sleep, well, that's more yang. If you are eating more processed depleting foods, it's more yang. If you are fasting for more than, let's say, 12 hours, 13 hours, 14 hours a day, every day, it's more yang. It's more depleting. If you are in a job that's very stressful, it's more yang. If you get a lot of road rage on the drive to work, it's more yang. Anything that makes you stressed is more yang. That's why, prolonged fasting is a good thing, but not every day, right? I mean, that's because it does some work on the nervous system, unless you are completely relaxed during that. Hard workouts, they're more depleting. Can we do them? Absolutely. Absolutely we can. Should we do them every day? Absolutely not. Should we do them if we're already in an exhaustion stage? Absolutely not. What do we need to do that would allow us to rebuild our body? Well, I'm not going to go through all that today, but I am going to talk about it from an exercise perspective because it's our Training Thursday show. And there are 1,069 podcasts before this that give you all of those keys as well. My book, The Rain Barrel Effect, it tells you exactly how to rebuild and rejuvenate the body. It tells you exactly how to do that. It tells you exactly what I do in my practice. Not kind of what I do in my practice, but exactly what I do in my practice. All proceeds from the book go to charity. So that's why I feel very comfortable recommending this book to everyone out there. It is exactly what I do, and I took my time writing that book. It was written over 5 years. And I knew when the time was right to publish it, that I was not going to really change anything else, that was it. I'd already been doing the same things for many, many years, and I wasn't going to change it. And they were based on sound principles of both state-of-the-art medicine as well as 6,000 years of ancient-based wisdom. So what do we know about balancing the body from a bioregulatory perspective as well as all forms of medicine? It's this, is that to draw more energy into the body, we need to cultivate what's called the parasympathetic nervous system. So we have to do activities that get us in the parasympathetic nervous system. So one of them would simply be walking. Walking allows, as long as you're not stressed while walking and you're focused on your breath, your breathing, is to get into the parasympathetic mode. Is it a hard workout? Of course not. But if you can't do 10,000 steps per day without being exhausted, you honestly have no business really doing anything else. You need to work up to that. And then we're doing some light cardio. And the person that I did the interview with was quite surprised by my answer because they were under the thought process, which many are, that cortisol is spiked during cardio. And that is actually not true unless the cardio is strenuous on the body. Let's say you go for a run for an hour. Well, that will absolutely spike cortisol in most people. That's going to degrade muscle. That's going to break down the body. What I talk about is not running. I talk about getting on an upright bike, an exercise bike, where you're pedaling at around 60% of your max VO2. Your heart rate's going to be somewhere between 100 and 120 for most people. And all you are doing is getting the blood flow through the body, and you're oxygenating the body from an aerobic-based capacity Because many people, this is going to get a little bit more in depth, so I'm going to talk about this on a separate show. Many people who have adrenal-based issues have serious issues with what's called the cell membrane dynamics. They're not able to get enough oxygen into their cells. Well, doing cardiovascular work, unlike resistance training or unlike intervals, gets the oxygen into the cells and it oxygenates your blood. Again, am I against resistance training? No, it's my go-to exercise. Like that is it, without a doubt. Same with intervals. For transforming your body, for also helping with anti-aging, they're great. But right now we're focused on exhaustion, adrenal-based fatigue. They're different, right? So this is not the best program for body transformation, but it's the best program to rejuvenate the body slowly. And as we're doing that exercise bike, it's harder than walking, which means this. For the 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or 20 minutes that we're working up to, we're adapting to a new stress. This is called a graduated exercise program. And it's the way that we do it. It's different than other graduated exercise programs out there. This enables us to say the next day, are we exhausted from that workout? If we are, well, we need to do less time on that exercise bike, or we need to do less steps per day. But our goal is to gradually adapt to stress. It's part of this hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. It's an adaptation stage. The next, we would go to body weight based training. You have no business training and straining the nervous system with heavier weights if you can't train your own body weight without being exhausted the next day first. If you have joint pain, if you have low mood, if you have poor sleep that night, if you have poor digestion the next day, if you're just exhausted the next day from doing that body weight training, well, the problem was you did too many exercises or you did too many sets, right? You did too much. We start with one set. We work the body up. We are adapting to stress. When that works with body weight, then we add the weights. After that, we will then get into the last stage when the body can handle that, which is high-intensity interval-based training with weights or just sprinting on your own. Now, am I a huge proponent of sprinting? Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we humans were built for long-distance walking, and we were built to sprint real fast. That's it. And you can look at that. I mean, the gluteus maximus is the largest muscle in the body. That is a hip extensor. We use that along with our giant Achilles tendon, at least for our body, that connects from the bottom of the heel up towards the calf. That allows us for rapid sprinting. That allows us for propulsion, for acceleration. And again, I've spoken about interval training in the past. What we're saying, though, is this. Not that any form of exercise is bad. I'm a huge proponent of all of them. But for people with true adrenal-based fatigue and exhaustion, we'll do some exercise. We won't do too long. And we'll do more of the yin-cultivating exercise, such as walking, a little bit of upright bike cardio. We'll do the sauna, which, believe it or not, actually accelerates the heart rate. It actually is a little bit of an exercise in itself. Check out the research on that. It's pretty amazing. You can do things such as hatha yoga. It's another great one. Not I don't want to use any names, so let me think of it, a hot yoga. We won't do a hot yoga, which is going to be more stimulating, but we'll do a hatha yoga, a gentle flow yoga. We will do exercises such as qigong, tai chi, anything that's bringing more energy into the body. Meditation is another one, right? As we sit still and we focus on our breath, we draw in more chi, more prana. We focus on the breath. Then we're going to work on the other things, the detoxification, the good food, the rest at night. So that's why when we train athletes, when we train professionals, when we train people who really want the highest level of body transformation, they're getting more sleep because they're training 4 or 5 days per week. Well, they know that part of their training is not what they do in the gym, but also it's mainly what they do outside of the gym. It's massage or foam rolling. It is doing Epsom salt soaks and baths. It's getting 8+ hours of sleep per night. It's making sure that you're not missing your meals, that you're getting all of your macros, that you're getting all of your nutritional supplements in. It's everything to do with the de-stress protocol. So that is how someone that's at the highest level of training should train, but also at the lowest level. Because right now, if you're in a state of exhaustion, what I want to do is to help you to rejuvenate that body. Because I'll tell you right now, it took me too long to figure out those answers. And one of those answers is that I trained very, very hard through college. It kept me from recovering at a faster rate. If I had known what I know now, I still probably would not have done it because I was 18 years old, 19 years old, 20 years old, right? And I was young, and I was dumb, and I was stubborn, and I could never see myself doing what I just told you right now. But nonetheless, it's still the truth. The truth never stops becoming the truth, right? It is always the truth. So that's why I had to realize that as I matured. And as I matured and I met my mentor finally, and I learned more about Ayurveda, I discovered the truth, and that's just what I'm trying to share now with you. So hopefully today's podcast was helpful. If it was, as always, please do feel free to share this lesson with anyone else it may serve. Are you ready to heal yourself and then go on to heal others? If so, the Integrative Health Practitioner Institute can help you discover proven functional medicine protocols that blend the best of 7 different healing disciplines from around the world. I personally share with you the exact handouts and protocols I use in my private practice that enable people to get well, lose the weight, and live longer, stronger. I want to pass this information on to the next generation of health coaches, and that is exactly why I created IHP. We are the future of the health coaching industry, and the skills and knowledge you will learn will make you an in-demand certified health coach anywhere in the world. Although we have many medical professionals taking the IHP certifications, no experience is necessary, and half our members have no previous health certifications. At the Integrative Health Practitioner Institute, our motto is a health coach in every home. Our goal is that you take this knowledge and then share it with family, friends, loved ones, your community, or in a practice where you create a career you love and can be proud of. The global IHP community is filled with some of the most kind and caring people in the world, and we can't wait to welcome you into our world soon. For more information or to set up a discovery call with one of our IHP Health Coach graduates, simply head over to integrativehealthpractitioner.org.